In this episode, we talk with Dave Woodward, the CEO of ClickFunnels.com. We talk about how they're spending $750,000 to $1 million a month on paid media. Plus, we talk about payback period and the campaigns and the book funnels and how they ultimately relate to bringing more users onto the platform. If you're in B2B SaaS and you're looking to spend a ton of money on paid advertising, you're going to absolutely love this episode. Plus, we talk about payback period. We talk about debt, VC, and ultimately how you start thinking about investing into marketing at the level and scale that ClickFunnels is at. You'll also hear about an epic fail. It's an amazing story that Dave is totally humbly sharing. I think you'll absolutely love the show. Enjoy.
But the real key that we've noticed is, yes, it takes a little bit longer to make that conversion from book to actual ClickFunnels. But what we found is the indoctrination that takes place and the trust that exists because they've actually gone through and consumed content makes the buyer so much better.
Listening to the Rich Ad Poor Ad podcast, where we break down the financial principles that rich advertisers are deploying today to turn advertising into profit and get tons of traffic to their websites without killing their cash. These advertisers, agencies, affiliates, brands are responsible for managing over $1 billion a year in ad spend. You'll hear about what's working for them today, their rich ads, and we'll roast their epic failures and crappy ads on the internet with poor ads. Let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of the Rich Ad Poor Ad podcast. This is your host, Zach Johnson. I'm with the one and only DC, Dylan Carpenter. How we doing today, Dylan?
We are doing good, man. We got a good one today. I'm pumped.
Legendary. It's the legendary. Gosh, man, this guy's been around. But gosh, he's kind of a big deal now. He's the CEO over at ClickFunnels. I mean, just a couple years ago was doing business development, but I think he's been, one of the longest standing relationships with the one and only Russell Brunson over there. So I'm excited to have Dave Woodward on the show. Dave, you, my friend, really don't need no introduction. So how you doing, man? I'm honestly just stoked to have you here.
I'm doing fantastic. That was more than an introduction that I needed. I'm just good with Dave. Let's go have some fun.
Let's do it, man. I love it, dude. So I want to hear about this. This is a little past due, but this is the first time you're on the show. I want to hear. I'm looking at your LinkedIn, man. I want to hear the conversation of how you landed the CEO position over at ClickFunnels.
So I've known Russell, probably I think 12 years now. I, at the time, had my own agency that was pre-digital stuff. This is like 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
And had a marketing agency in Southern California where I lived at the time, and ended up trying to figure, I had a client, my clients were primarily in the mortgage industry, banking, real estate, investing. And they were all trying to figure out this whole online thing. And I'd heard of Russell before. I'd seen a couple of his things and thought, I'm going to go figure this thing out. So I just went to a seminar that he and Stu McLaren were putting on at the time. It was about affiliate marketing. And I remember they got up and started talking, and Russell said, if you'd like to take us out to, lunch or dinner and pick our brain, go ahead and go to the back room and sign up. So I ran to the back and signed up for every breakfast, lunch, and dinner Russell had. And started off actually just creating a great friendship. And we've become friends, and just honestly, one of my best friends in the world. I've just loved working with him over the years. We've done a bunch of different projects together. Some things worked, some things didn't. And then when ClickFunnels came around, he invited me to come on board as a partner and help things out. Todd Dickerson and Russell are the two co-founders of ClickFunnels, both introverts. And I was the extrovert in the group, basically. So that was how I was brought in. I remember, in fact, I think it was one of the first times I met you, Zach, at the time. Was probably at TNC, was that probably 2015 or so down in San Diego? Mm-hmm. And at that point, they were... I was living down there, and Russ said, he was speaking at one of the rooms, and, they weren't going to let him pitch. And he said, how am I going to get people in the room? Because I wish we had a whole bunch of girls that could just, hand out t-shirts or do something like that. And I'm like, dude, you're in my city. So getting a whole bunch of girls to come down here, no problem. And so I contacted an agency I knew, and sure enough, within 2 hours, we had a bunch of women around there basically helping escort a whole bunch of people into the room. And
I remember that.
That's kind of where it started. But no,
And
I've
that's
known
what got you
Russell.
the that's what got you the
That's
CEO gig?
honestly, yeah. No, I think the main thing is both Todd and Russell are absolutely amazing at getting things up and running. They are the genius and the brains behind what we have, but neither
Yeah.
one of them like the operation side of it.
Yeah.
And so I've been doing this role now for the last year and a half,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not really big on titles. And it came up to where people are like, you guys really got to start having titles here more often. And I'm like, all
Yeah.
right. So at that point is where we finally made it official as far as CEO. And so I guess if you
Good
had to
deal.
actually put a date on it, it was last year sometime, and but that's how it's going.
Well, I'll give you more credit than that, man. I know a ton of people. I know a ton of people that have been friends with founders and entrepreneurs for 10, 15 years, and they still don't end up as CEOs of their friends' companies. All right. So kudos to you. Congrats on that. That's a
Thanks.
super big deal. And I'm excited to have you on the show. So you obviously have a massive reach over at ClickFunnels. You know what's working, what's not working. Let's get into it, man. I want to hear about this rich ad. What are some of the themes that the audience can take away from really on the funnel side? It's a 1-2 punch combo here. But what do you see in the ClickFunnels world that's making people rich today?
It's really fascinating. I think some of the main things that as we start paying attention to just to the ads and things, prior to 4 or 5 years ago, we really didn't have a lot of opportunity to run Facebook ads and do things. And most of the times back then it was more PPC, Google plays, SEO things. I think the main thing we're seeing right now is the ability for people. Again, Russell just released Traffic Secrets book, and in there
Yeah.
talks a lot about understanding that you can't have just one platform that you're 100% reliant on. And so I think the one thing I'm starting to see is everyone really just gravitated to Facebook because it was the place to go. It was easy. You can get,
Yeah.
you just drill down, you get a ton of demographic information. You can be super targeted, super focused. And just like we used to have the Google Snaps where it literally wipe out a business overnight, we're starting to see some of that as far as the Facebook Snaps. We actually refer to it as, if you go back to the Avengers idea as far as Xanos, or
Yeah.
it's basically it's Zuckerberg Snaps. And that's really is the biggest thing. Is we're just afraid that if you got a business that is 100% reliant just on one traffic source,
Mm.
you literally can die overnight. And I think the
Mhm.
main thing I'm starting to see is people are understanding that and are going, okay, I have to be able to have ads in more than just one place.
Mm-hmm. Where do you see the second place? Really popping up for a lot of people in your world right now.
Depending on the platform that they're on, or depending on their audience, we actually
Yeah.
are seeing a lot of people starting to gravitate back to Google. Google is
Mm-hmm.
becoming a little more easier to play with than they used to be. Obviously, Instagram and Facebook is the same. We're starting to see other people starting to explore ads on podcasts. We've done a
Yeah.
couple of those. Again, depends on your audience. And I think
Yeah.
the key to ads is you really have to identify who has your audience and then go wherever they're at.
Mm.
Yeah. I speaking of your guys' traffic secrets book campaign, I actually brought. I mentioned to you guys in a narrative story from back in my Lead Pages days, and really in this narrative of understanding payback period, right? ClickFunnels is really B2B SaaS, right? But like you guys have totally flipped the script in that arena, and most B2B SaaS companies, they're doing free trials with payback periods of like 6 months, 12 months, right? And you guys have just absolutely done phenomenal with all these book funnels, and it's amazing to see the SaaS company focus on profitability before people are even getting into before they're even selling their core offer. And this actually came up with a couple VC related conversations when they asked us like why we had the Rich Ed Poor Ed book and the Agency Growth book, which pale in comparison to the success you guys have had, but the principle remains the same. Do you see this really still playing out at your guys' level of size and scale on the particularly on the paid traffic side? Because obviously it's working on the affiliate side. Everybody's promoting ClickFunnels.
No,
But
Zach, I
yeah,
appreciate that question. I have the opportunity of talking to growth equity, private equity people, 2-3 times every single week these days. It seems like
yeah.
lots of people knocking. But I think the part that I guess a good reference actually is, I don't know if you know Dan Martell. I think you know Dan.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Dan Martell's got SaaS Academy, and we were talking to some of their other founders over there about how do you actually scale and grow a SaaS company, which is typically not something, as you referenced. Most of the time, it's a payback time of anywhere from 6 to 9 months. And for us, when you're bootstrapped and you don't have any money, you just don't have that option. And so you start figuring out what works. And for us, for like John Parks, who's just an absolutely genius at ads and Facebook and traffic and everything else, we've really just given him the challenge of, John, we really need a 30-day payback on those ads. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty tough to actually get a free trial. What's a 14-day free trial with a credit card to get paid and make your money back in a month. And so because of that, we've done what's worked for us. And that is, we're really big on a break-even funnel is what we basically look at it as, and self-liquidating offers is what it comes down to. So for us, I can tell you right now, it would cost us anywhere from $135 to $142 for a free trial. Well, and again, we're converting those things to paid anywhere between 42 and 47%. And I'm not going to, so really to get a person actually paid to make $97, I then have to spend almost $300 and I've got a 3-month payback on it. I'm like,
oh yeah.
We can't afford to do that. And so,
but let's explain why, just to take that a little bit step further. If you're spending, $750,000 a month and you have a 3-month payback period, you're talking about $2.2 million, right? That's sure. VC money, right? That's why we continue to say 40% of venture capital is spent on paid advertising.
Oh, totally. Oh my God.
That reason alone, right?
It is.
And if you want to have the growth record, right? If you want to grow by 300%, 400% next year, that 2.2 becomes 10 million and 20% of your company in 12 months, right? And so I don't think, like, everybody understands BookFunnels works, but I've been a part of pre-ClickFunnels days, running marketing over at Lead Pages, and like having the same level of conversation and seeing 38 million in venture raised, and a company that sold and like sold way early relative to the track record that ClickFunnels has had, and I think that full narrative doesn't often get highlighted enough of just a 3-month payback period. And then how that ultimately comes back to like, rah, like VCs are the enemy, but like, why is that the case? And so that's awesome to hear that, like, you guys still track that stuff and you're like, yeah, free trials sounds great from a funnel to, from a paid acquisition strategy, but it always makes more sense with a book on the front end. Yeah.
Well, it does for us. I remember one of the very first private equity guys I ever met with. It was Russell and I. We were literally having lunch with the guy here in Boise, and this is like 2015. He's like, we started going through our numbers. He's like, oh my gosh, how I can give you this amount of money? And we're like, whoa, wait a second. We actually don't do that. And he's like, what do you mean you don't do that? I said, no, we don't have that kind of money. He goes, oh, well, I can provide that. And I'm like, I don't want your money because we actually feel like we can grow and scale this. And as we explained it to him, he's like, so what you're telling me is if that's actually true, funnels literally can change the game for any business. And we're like, yes, that's exactly right. And fortunately, we've been able to prove that. So to answer your question, yes, we definitely see a lot of the book funnels that they convert. I can tell you right now, when we look at a book funnel, our most recent book funnel, Traffic Secrets, we always look at trying to get our CAC, cost to acquire a customer, to equal or less than what our average car value is. So our cost to acquire a customer on a book funnel right now, it's about $17 to $20. Our average cart value on that is anywhere in the neighborhood of $52 to about $58, $60. Wow. And then you look at the book cost and the fulfillment, everything else, toss another $20 in there. We actually make money on acquiring that customer. But the real key that we've noticed is, yes, it takes a little bit longer to make that conversion from book to actual ClickFunnels. Right. But what we found is the indoctrination that takes place and the trust that exists because they've actually gone through and consumed content makes the buyer so much better. And for us, anytime we're trying to sell something, I would much rather have a buyer lead than an opt-in lead anytime.
This episode is brought to you by Funnel Dash's Ad Card, the only charge card exclusively for your digital ad spend. And if you're an advertiser spending tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on ads, and you're in e-commerce, and you're looking for more capital or credit to scale, then you're probably familiar with solutions like Shopify Capital, Brex, and ClearBank. The problem with these solutions is the cost of capital is expensive, and they take a percentage of your revenue. One of the beauties with Ad Card, when you combine it with one of our in-network, of our 5,000 in-network agency partners, you have the opportunity to qualify for free ad capital funding, where we'll load up your ad card with an additional $50,000 all the way up to $1 million of additional capital to deploy on platforms like Facebook, Google, Pinterest, Instagram, YouTube, and more. So if that's you, if you're in e-commerce, spending a ton on ads, and you're looking for a way to decrease the cost of capital, check out Ad Card. We'll get back to the show. How do you guys track today, like book buyer to ClickFunnels sign up? Is that just kind of a general metric across the board, or do you really track that all the way through on the back end of traffic secrets?
I don't track it all. We're trying to. Again, huge shout out to Alex Becker and Hyros. We're using his platform right now and trying to tie a lot more of that in. It's tough. It's a little difficult to do. We're trying to get a better job at doing that. We're much better at just growing things than tracking things. And it's it's one of the things we're really trying to learn a little bit better, is how to actually track things. Fortunately for John, he does a ton of that. I know we've used Wicked Reports in the past, and I know he's using Hyros right now. And it's fortunately, maybe in 3 or 4 months, I'll have a better answer for you. I can't track. I would love to say that for every 3 books we sell, we get a ClickFunnels user that pays us for 4 months. I don't have that yet.
That was all good, man. Get off the show, Dave.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, that was, pretty much where we set out. Like, so my journey at Funnel Dash was really to be able to track that, right? Because I thought the answer was, if I knew my payback period, then I would be confident in that number, and then I would just go win more capital over on budget, and then I would be able to scale. And it turns out the end of that analytics rainbow that everybody's still chasing. In most times, that clarity didn't really end up changing the overall investment in the channel or the growth. I think it gave some level of satisfaction or confidence. But most of the time, that led to a financial conversation, right? Okay, well, now that we know this, great, we have a payback period of 90 days. I'm still spending $100,000 a month. I still have $300,000 of carry, and B2B, SaaS or subscription. Where am I going to go get the $900,000 of operating capital, right? And that is pretty much the journey of kind of starting from, a ClickFunnels, trying to solve that problem through a better funnel. And I think that you guys are doing a phenomenal job of helping people, play that book. And the journey of kind of where I've come to is wow, finance can actually be another lever here. And it doesn't, venture capital doesn't have to be the only alternative to you either get a funnel at break even or you have to go VC. I think with where we want to go with ad capital and ad card is really being able to bridge that gap through financial products for advertisers. So I appreciate the narrative and the conversation of seeing how you guys have really evolved that, and it's been such a part of our story as well, in terms of just how do you acquire customers at break even, and it'll solve so many problems.
It does.
But that's cool. Well, so everybody has some failures though, Dave, and I want to hear about something that is just totally blanked, because everybody just thinks you guys are untouchable over at ClickFunnels, and everything you do turns to gold, which is for the most part true for the last couple of years. However, I want to hear some things that you guys have done that have totally bombed, and break down this poor ad campaign for us.
Now, the only thing is we just go really fast. So it covers up a lot of mistakes. That's the main thing. We can make a lot of mistakes super fast, and hopefully we learn from them. Um,
Yeah.
I think one of the things, it's interesting I've cut my teeth in direct response marketing for so many years. That's again Dan Kennedy back in the early 2000s, and that's just really where it came from. And so for me, when we were we just recently did the Traffic Secrets book launch, got Russell to the New York Times bestseller list. Super excited for all that success. But it was
Yeah.
probably one of the most frustrating campaigns I've ever been involved in. And I feel so sorry for John Parks, who I'm like, John, I'm sorry, I'm totally blowing your ad budget and it's completely failing. And I just continue to apologize to him because I'm like, this is what we're told we need to do. And so we ended up, normally everything is tracked and it's just how we're accustomed to tracking things. And I remember working with an outside agency who used Cision and some others to try to get us a much more broad appeal and to get, really to get more mainstream for the book. Was our biggest concern was, people inside of ClickFunnels community and others have heard about it, but how do we go more mainstream so that we could actually get recognized by the New York Times and that people go, oh yeah, everybody's talking about it. And so we ended up using Cision and some of their things. And I remember they were saying, oh my gosh, you won't believe the type of conversions we get. We're going to be on all these TV shows. We got these radio shows. We've got these huge networks of where we're posting things. And we're like, all I care is you can track this back to book sales. And like, we can't. I'm like, I need to be able to track this. And they go, well, I know we can track it back to maybe video views. I'm like, okay, great. So we went ahead and did that. And I wish I had the actual numbers here in front as far as how much we spent, but it was somewhere in the neighborhood for this one week was somewhere in the neighborhood of, $30,000 to $50,000 or some stupid thing. And, and in doing that, so I just got I was trying to find the report a few months ago. So total audience views was 785,160,031 views, or potential audience views, I guess what they were calling that. And then it hit 14,965 sites. And out of all that, we got 23 video views.
Cost per acquisition of.
Yeah. Honestly, I think we would have been better literally just walk down the street and say, you know what? Can I just pay you $8,000 to buy this book? And it would have been a much better opportunity, because from those video views, I don't have even the conversion if we even sold any books out of that. But so we spent nearly $50,000, and I could have literally thrown a party and lit a match to that money instead.
I know, seriously. Was it just a PR play, or like what was the actual? Was it ads trying to amplify things?
It was
like
both. It was a PR play with ads, and all of their ads, we wanted to write the copy, and they're like, and so we did again more direct response marketing. They're like, no, that'll never go. It won't fly in the magazines we're putting this into. There's no way. And by the time we saw it, it was so diluted. It's like, I wouldn't even have stopped. There was no I mean, if I was looking at the actual ad, I would have just glanced over it and gone to the next thing, because it was just, it was just a total branding play that sucked and just burned a ton of money.
Branding plays are really tough. When you come out of the stock of, bootstrapped and break even and direct response, it just doesn't sit well with you.
It doesn't.
So we were talking recently with the old co-founder of Capital One, and it's a phenomenal story. But basically they kind of came out with the whole like what's in your wallet, and basically Samuel L. Jackson was like the complete opposite of what you're talking about. He's like, yeah, so like, we we went public, and then we just realized that to have a household brand, it was going to cost 120 million, 20 grand. He's like 120 million a year for 10 years. And then we should just kind of own the space. And I'm like, oh, that's how you guys think, like at that level. Like,
I'm just not there. If I thought about spending $1.2 billion over the next 10 years, I would not have come up with that plan at all.
Right? Like, it's just like, oh my gosh, it blew my mind. And here I was trying to talk to him about book funnels, and he was just like, he's like, what?
Again, but you probably see that in the ads. I mean, sometimes when you have that kind of amount of money, you can't spend that all on Facebook. You're not going to spend that. I mean, you just can't spend that kind of stuff. So I guess you have to do different things.
Well, so here's what I want to talk about. This is a side that I don't think gets talked about enough. And this is really, the whole purpose of the Rich Dad Poor Dad podcast is to really help the industry move away from marketer math, stompernet math, as you would say, Dave, where everyone's rounding up to the nearest million, 10 million, and using bookings number and projected revenues. And I think really we've all been guilty of it, but really I want to help the market get educated on financial principles of how to think about investing into campaigns. How do you think about like cutting your losses, limiting your losses on some of those things versus like writing them out? And now with your big fancy title, like you're making like a ton of you're basically like a high level like chief investment officer of like what's what a CEO does is allocation of capital and resources and initiatives. What are some of the principles that as you're thinking about where to invest, that's also applicable to us weons down here,
Oh,
um, in the in normal businesses that that could be applied across the board.
I think some of the main things that we take a look at right now, for us, when we're looking at investing, there's an investment into tech itself. There's an investment, obviously, into the marketing and the growth side of it. And I think, I mean, they're totally different conversations. I'll try to focus more on just the marketing side of it.
Yeah.
So for us right now, so beginning of the year, we were spending just over a million a month in ad spend. And
Mm.
I've always, you'll never see me cutting ad dollars when times get tough. Think it's probably one of the biggest mistakes that most companies do is they cut their marketing budgets or their ad budgets. I'm like, that's the time when you want to double down. But one of the
Mhm.
things we did do right around early COVID days was um, we looked at really things we would classify as either break glass moments or
Mm.
full on emergency break moments. And I
Mhm.
think in a business, those are some main things you got to pay attention to. Is there are certain things that are kind of break glass type of things where you're like, we better, you know. And again, break glass comes back to the idea here of you're in a fire and basically you have to break the glass, pull the fire alarm, and run out of the
Mhm.
building. It's a huge fire drill type of deal versus handbrake type of things where it's like I'm just going to slow this down a little. And so
Right.
for us, we started looking at it, and one of the main things we challenged John with, and he totally responded, and that was which ones of our ads are really working versus those that uh, they might work. And so for us, we quickly went from just over $1 million ad budget in a month down to about 600,000
Mm.
by
Yeah.
finding the ads that actually they were more testing type of things, and
Mhm.
hopefully, longer term they might play out. But for us in that moment, it was a handbrake type of a situation where we're like, okay, it's yeah, we'll save 400 grand, but more importantly, what we want to do is to reallocate that 400 grand. It wasn't just to save it; it was to actually reallocate it. And so we ended up breaking that down to 600,000 within about a 2 month window. But within a month, we were back up to 750. And
Yeah.
the reason for that was John was able to say, okay, these are the ones that they're not generating the type of an ROI that we need right now. And again, every company's ROAS is different. And as far as how long of a time do you have, what's your return on CAC? Is it a month?
Mhm.
Is it 2 weeks? Is it 3 months? So for
Mhm.
us, again, it was John, we're looking at basically a 30-day return on CAC. And we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just a return on CAC, but
Yeah.
that the customers we were bringing in were actually converting. And that was one of the main metrics we started paying attention to is what's our conversion and our metric from those
Yeah.
lead gens to actual ClickFunnels users.
Well, that's where I feel like a lot of people go into this space with kind of this like blindfolded rule of like, oh yeah, everybody's cutting budget, but I'm not going to cut budget. But the secret killer of advertising, like I don't know if you guys saw this like in March or April, but like the thing that is difficult for a lot of people to have visibility is in their LTV dropping, right? Like the
Sure,
higher ticket
sure.
stuff drops off, your average order value starts shrinking, and next thing you know, like you're trying to hang on to that level of spend. But I think you did the playbook perfectly. So I have just kudos to you, Dave, in the sense that like let's pull back, cut the fat, but not cut, but reallocate. I think those are great differentiators there, and focusing on the right metrics again. I'm like giving you a round of applause over here. And of like what is actually driving LTV and what LTV is uh is sticking.
I appreciate that, and thank you. I can tell you for us, one of the main things that it actually did was while we were looking at that metric, the other metric we really paid attention to was our churn and trying to reduce churn during the same period. So we were bringing in the right customers, and we were fortunate enough to be able to get our churn down by almost 25% over the last 4 months. So it was a
Wow.
full court press.
That's awesome, man. I love it. I love it. So tell everybody a little bit about where they can hear about more about ClickFunnels. Is it clickfunnels.com? Is that the domain?
I think that's the best domain we have right now. So let's go with that one. ClickFunnels.com.
Is it clickfunnels.com? Oh man, Dave, this is so exciting. I would love to hear just a little bit about what you're excited about next. What does this mean for you personally as like, put on the CEO hat? What are you excited about next, over the next 6 to 12 months?
Oh, for me, I think some of the real exciting things we're seeing right now is the impact of virtual. For us is, we have our annual users conference, Funnel Hacking Live. We'll have 5,000 people at. We ended up, again, during that whole handbrake scenario, one of the things we looked at was actually bringing on a virtual conference. And in June, we did one, had 5,000 people register for it. And, we're seeing a lot of these summit challenges. We're seeing virtual conferences. Those are the types of things right now that are working. And because you're going to people right where they're at and where they've got time. So for us, I think you're going to see a huge change in the way virtual is done. And meaning it'll be much more engaging. We've got a couple of things that's going to be potentially a hybrid of virtual that we're looking at doing. And I believe right now, most people are becoming more accustomed to really how to use a webinar, how to use a Zoom room, how to actually engage it where, again, from a virtual standpoint. So we see a lot of opportunity in virtual. For us, we end up selling our high-end coaching there. We're going to be doing the exact same thing at the end of September. And we'll probably end up doing one later in this year as well. So we'll end up having the normal impact that we would get to bring people into our high-end coaching once a year. We're going to now have the opportunity of doing 4 times a year and seeing a great opportunity there. I believe that the whole idea of either a summit or a challenge, again, a challenge funnels work extremely well these days because people are trying to get results. And so if there's something you can do in your business right now that is a quick win for your customer, that you can get them that win within the next 7, 14, 21, or 28 days, 30 days, whatever it is, doing a challenge is probably one of the best things because you got a lot of skeptical buyers out there. And what they want is they want to see a win. And that's the easiest and best way of building trust with someone is to take them through that kind of a challenge. And I'm seeing challenges. In fact, I think I saw a summit recently. I think Teachable's copying some of the things we did with Mastermind on the summit side. But I think, again, back to the challenge thing, if there's a way that you can put a challenge into your business, great way of having your customers actually use your product, consume your product, use it, gain the trust. And then from there, at the end of the challenge is the upsell opportunity. We've been doing that for our One Funnel Away challenge over 2 years now. And our retention is almost 30% higher on those people who go through One Funnel Away challenge versus those who don't. The summit funnels, again, we did the summit funnel. It's how we launched mastermind.com last 3 weeks ago with Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi. And the summits are fantastic because people get a ton of information from experts or people in that industry. And we're seeing that being done in so many different verticals these days that so I think those are the 3 areas that we're super, super excited about right now.
Yeah, no, that's cool, man. All right. So we got a couple quick rapid fire here. These, so when it comes to your guys' card program, are you guys like, and it's interesting because at the level you guys are at, like, do you care about points, cashback, credit, or just you guys don't even care at this level?
Our credit cards?
Yeah, like, so we've had some people on the show, like they've just talked about, like, you got the points, just like enthusiasts, and then you got the people that are just like, I don't even care, and then the other people that are just like straight cash back. And I'm curious what you guys fit.
Yeah, so ours are all Amex points, and we have way too many. We used to use them for our travel expenses all the time. We'd fly most of our employees around on Amex points. And now we have so many points. We're probably going to have to, since no one's traveling, I don't know what we're going to do with these millions of points we've accumulated. So they're just sitting there.
Points are becoming pointless. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Okay, cool. And then I think I know where you're going to land on this one, but bootstrapped debt VC, where do you stand?
Oh man, obviously on a startup, bootstrapped all day long, no question about it. And as I think the key right now, when I look at a company that's getting going, is you need a proof of concept, and there's no better proof of concept than a customer who actually takes out their credit card and pays you something. And so for a company who thinks they're going to go out with an idea and have someone else invest in it, I'm totally against that. I think you need to go ahead and you need to bootstrap this here. I think part of the debt that comes into play is, I mean, I've used credit cards many times on that. I think debt actually, as you scale and grow a company, starts to have, especially a SaaS company, it's one of the things we'd looked at. You actually, these days, can typically get about 3 times your EBITDA on debt. And so it's something that I've definitely been looking at as far as a way of, if nothing else, I think it's important these days to have cash and have access to cash. I believe we're going into a time after the first of the year where you're going to see a lot of businesses for sale. And we definitely want to have cash on the sidelines to acquire those. And I would do that through debt for sure. And then as far as VC, I think VC, I'm not a huge VC guy. I'm probably more the private equity, growth equity. I see things that Kajabi's done recently after they had an investment from Spectrum. And I think that once you've got a proof of concept and you've scaled and you've grown and you've built a company, there definitely comes a time where it's probably worth taking a look at a PE growth equity, and not necessarily from the investment, but more from the knowledge, the wisdom, and things that companies of that size that they provide. So I think that's how I'd answer that.
Dude, that's a nice, like, holistic just perspective. It's just like you're like Switzerland. You have the benefits and pros and cons of each. I love it, man.
Well, I want to make sure I'm definitive on the whole bootstrap from a startup standpoint. I'll definitely draw the line in the sand there.
And I appreciate you so much, and appreciate you kind of entertaining some of the less obvious and the less talked about parts of scaling a business and being so transparent. It's always a pleasure. Yeah, man. Any last words? Any last thoughts?
Man, absolutely. Just love seeing what you guys are doing. Love seeing the growth you guys are having, and congrats on all you're doing. I think it's awesome.
Thanks, man. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Rich Dad Poor Dad podcast. If you're like me and listen to podcasts on the go ahead and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and richdadpoorad.com/podcast. And if you absolutely love the show, go ahead and leave a review and a comment, share with a friend. If you do, take a copy, screenshot of it, email me, Zach@funneldash.com, show me you left a review, and I'll give you a free copy of the Rich Dad Poor Dad book. To learn more about the book, go to richdadpoorad.com. To leave a review, go to richdadpoorad.com/review. Thanks again.